A black woman, dressed in a simple hoodie and travel pants, stands on the rain-slicked tarmac. In front of her, a $70 million Gulfstream G700 jet gleams under the airport lights. He is the pilot, clipboard in hand, barring her way. "You don't fit the profile," he sneers. "This is a private flight. Get off my aircraft." He thought she was a trespasser. He thought he was in control. What he didn't know is that the woman he just insulted wasn't just a passenger. She was his new boss, and the next words he'd hear wouldn't be, "Prepare for takeoff." They'd be, "Clear out your locker." The sky over Teterboro Airport was the color of a fresh bruise. A cold, miserable November rain swept across the tarmac, making the exclusive world of private aviation feel a little less glamorous. This was the domain of the elite, the silent billionaires, the faces you see on magazine covers. The Teterboro FBO, the fixed base operator, in this case, the ultra-exclusive Signature Aviation Terminal, was a hushed temple of leather chairs and complimentary espresso. Through this temple walked Dr. Evelyn Reed. She did not look like she belonged, or at least, that's what the blonde receptionist, whose name tag read Karen, had clearly decided. Evelyn was dressed for a 14-hour flight, not a photo op. She wore high-end, comfortable black Lululemon travel pants, a matching dark grey hoodie from a small tech startup, one she'd funded, and a pair of worn but clean Nike fly knits. Her hair was pulled back in a practical tight bun. The only sign of her status was the Patek Philippe watch, half hidden by her sleeve, and even that was understated. She was on her phone, pacing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the jets. Her voice was quiet, but radiated an authority that was completely at odds with her appearance. "No, David, that's unacceptable," she said, her back to the room. "The new filtration algorithm is running at 78% efficiency. I designed it for 99.8%. The degradation is in the data pipeline. Check the ingestion script for... Hold on. Check for a memory leak in the batch processing. It's not clearing the cache after each file. Fix it. I'll be in Singapore by morning. I expect it to be solved by the time I land." She hung up just as Karen called her name, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Mom? Mom, are you Dr. Reed?" Evelyn turned, slipping her phone into her pocket. "I am. Is the flight crew ready?" Karen's smile was a tight, painful-looking line. "Yes, they're ready. Your party is just you?" "Just me," Evelyn said, "as per the manifest." "Right." Karen tapped her pen. "Well, Captain Holden is waiting for you on the tarmac. Aircraft N700ER. It's the large Gulfstream. You can't miss it." The subtext was clear. Even someone like you. Evelyn nodded, grabbed her single rollerboard bag, and pushed through the heavy glass doors. The wind and rain hit her instantly. A concierge held an umbrella for her, but she waved it off. She was focused. She walked past a Bombardier Global 6000 and a Dassault Falcon 8X, her eyes fixed on the sleek, powerful lines of the Gulfstream G100, waiting for her, her G700. Two men stood at the base of the airstairs, huddled under a small awning, trying to keep a clipboard dry. The senior pilot, a man in his late 50s with silver hair and a self-important posture, watched her approach with a thunderous expression. His jacket proudly bore the Executive Sky logo. This was Captain Mark Holden. The co-pilot, a younger man named Tom Calloway, looked nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot. As Evelyn reached the plane, Holden stepped forward, physically blocking her path. He didn't look at her face. He looked at her hoodie, her sneakers, and then back to his clipboard, as if searching for an error. "Hold on, Mom," he said, his voice a gravelly baritone that expected to be obeyed. "I think there's been a mistake." Evelyn stopped. "Captain Holden." "That's me. and I'm in charge of this aircraft. This is a private flight for Dr. E. Reed, a very important client." "I'm Dr. Evelyn Reed," she said calmly, though a familiar coldness was creeping into her stomach. She'd been through this before, not in a while, and never this blatantly, but it was a familiar script. Holden laughed, a short, sharp, disbelieving bark. "Right, look, I don't know what kind of scam you're pulling, or if you're one of those influencers trying to get a picture for your Instagram, but this is a $70 million aircraft, and I have a zero-tolerance policy for security breaches." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Captain, I am not an influencer. I am your passenger. My name is on your manifest. Now, may I please board? I'm on a schedule." "The manifest says E. Reed," Holden snapped, his face turning a blotchy red. "We were expecting a gentleman, or at least someone who, well, frankly, you don't fit the profile." "I don't fit the profile," Evelyn repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "The profile for what? Owning a jet, or just flying in one?" The co-pilot Tom winced and looked down. He clearly wanted to be anywhere else. "The profile of a high-net-worth individual who charters a G800, Holden retorted. "You look like you got lost on your way to the food court. Now, I'm going to ask you one time, politely, to return to the terminal. I'll have FBO security meet you there." "You are refusing me entry to my flight." "I am refusing you entry to my aircraft," Holden corrected, puffing his chest out. "I am the pilot in command. My authority is total. My word is law. And I am saying you are not boarding this plane. It's a security risk. For all I know, you're a stowaway or worse. Tom, call security. Tell them we have a trespasser on the tarmac." Evelyn held up a hand. "That won't be necessary." "Oh, it's necessary, Ma'am." "No," Evelyn said, her eyes locking onto his. "It's unnecessary, because you're right about one thing, Captain. There has been a mistake, but it's not mine. It's yours." She reached into her pocket, but it wasn't for an ID. It was for her phone. Captain Holden scoffed when he saw the phone. "What, you're going to call your lawyer? Your people? Save it! I've seen it all before. I've been flying for 30 years, sweetheart. I've had Saudi princes and tech billionaires on my planes. I know what they look like. And you ain't it." "Tom, did you call security?" Holden barked, not taking his eyes off Evelyn. The co-pilot, Tom Calloway, fumbled with his radio, his gaze flicking nervously between the angry captain and the uncannily calm woman. "Captain, maybe we should just check her ID. The FBO must have..." "The FBO is run by a 20-year-old girl who's more interested in her nails," Holden snarled. "I am the final line of defense for this aircraft. I don't trust her judgment, and I sure as hell don't trust this." He waved a dismissive hand at Evelyn. "You've been flying for 30 years, Evelyn said, her thumb swiping across her screen. "Impressive. You've been with Executive Sky for, what, 12 of those?" Holden's arrogance wavered, just for a second. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. "How did you? That's public knowledge. It doesn't mean anything." "And you report to David Allen, the Director of Flight Operations," Evelyn continued, her voice as sharp as a scalpel. "Everyone reports to David," Holden said, trying to regain his footing. "He's the boss, and he's the one who will give me a commendation for stopping a potential security threat." "That's funny," Evelyn said. "I just hung up with David." She pressed a number on her speed dial. The phone rang once. It was answered immediately. "David," she said, her voice formal and cold. "Evelyn Reed. I'm afraid I have a situation." At the name Evelyn Reed, Captain Holden's smug expression didn't just fade. It collapsed. The co-pilot, Tom, looked like he'd just seen a ghost. His jaw went slack. "Dr. Reed." David Allen's voice was tinny and panicked, even through the small phone speaker. "Is everything all right? The acquisition, did it not go through?" Acquisition. That was the word that stopped Holden's heart. Evelyn looked at the pilot, her eyes devoid of all warmth. "The acquisition went through, David. It closed 90 minutes ago, which is why this is so informative. I'm standing on the tarmac at Teterboro, in front of N700ER. Holden's blood turned to ice. N700ER. Her tail number. ER Evelyn Reed. "It's a beautiful aircraft," Evelyn continued, her gaze locked on the stammering pilot. "A real credit to the company, or it would be if your employee would let me board." "What?" David's voice shrieked. Who is stopping you?" "Dr. Reed, I am so sorry." "A Captain Mark Holden," Evelyn said, never breaking eye contact. "He tells me—" "What was it, Captain?" "That I don't fit the profile. That I'm a security risk. He's currently waiting for FBO security to come and arrest me for trespassing." A torrent of panicked, garbled sound came from the phone. David Allen was shouting, but not at Evelyn. He was shouting at someone in the background. "Get me Holden! Get me his file! Get me his termination papers!" Holden, his face as white as a napkin, took a stumbling step backward. "Dr. Reed, I had no idea." "Put your phone on speaker, David," Evelyn commanded. A moment later, David's voice filled the rainy tarmac, loud and clear and trembling with professional terror. "Captain Mark Holden." Holden flinched as if struck. Yes, Director Allen, sir." "Do you have any idea who you are talking to, you monumental idiot?" David screamed. "Do you? E. Reed isn't a charter client. E. Reed just signed a check that bought Executive Sky from its parent company. That acquisition I told everyone was in the works. That was her. Dr. Evelyn Reed isn't a boss, Captain. She is the boss. She owns you. She owns me. She owns the jet you are standing on. And you won't let her on it?" The silence that followed was heavier and more absolute than any thunderstorm. The rain, the wind, the distant whine of another jet taxiing. It all faded away. There was only the sound of Mark Holden's career circling the drain. Tom Calloway looked like he wanted to crawl into the landing gear. Holden opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at Evelyn, his eyes pleading. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the raw, pathetic terror of a man who has just realized he has made a mistake he can never, ever take back. Evelyn watched him. She let the silence stretch, letting him drown in it. Finally, she spoke to him, but she addressed her phone. "David." "Yes, Dr. Reed." "Yes, Mom, anything." "This man," she said, pointing a single steady finger at Holden, "just demonstrated a catastrophic lapse in judgment. He did not check his manifest. He did not verify my credentials. He did not call his superiors. He made a command decision based on what he thought I should look like. He humiliated me, he delayed my schedule, and he exposed this company, my company, to a lawsuit so large it would have bankrupted us, all because he was prejudiced." "Yes, Ma'am. He's gone," David sputtered. "No, David," Evelyn said. "He's not gone. Gone is too easy. Gone is what you say when someone retires." She took a step toward Mark Holden, who flinched. She was close enough now to speak, just above a whisper, but her voice carried with absolute finality. "Captain Mark Holden, as my first official act as the new owner of Executive Sky," she said, "I am terminating your employment, effective immediately. You are a liability, you are a disgrace, and you are trespassing on my property. Please hand your credentials, your company ID, and your access badges to—" "Mr. Calloway." She looked at the pale co-pilot. You are Mr. Calloway, correct? Tom snapped to attention. Yes, ma'am. First Officer Tom Calloway. Good, Evelyn said. Take his badges, and then you and I are going to conduct a pre-flight check, because I still have to be in Singapore. Mark Holden stood frozen, the rain mixing with the cold sweat on his forehead. The words, "take his badges," hung in the air, a sentence worse than any profanity. It was the physical act of castration from a world he had ruled for 3 decades. "Dr. Reed, please," Holden stammered, his voice a pathetic rasp. "It was a mistake, a misunderstanding. You can't. 30 years. I have a contract." Evelyn's expression was unmoved. "You had a contract. David, are you still on the line?" "Yes, Dr. Reed," came the tinny voice. "I trust Mr. Holden's contract has a morals and conduct clause, one that forbids gross negligence and behavior that exposes the company to legal jeopardy?" "Yes, ma'am," David said, his voice regaining a sliver of bureaucratic strength. Section 4A. He's in breach. His termination is for cause. All severance, all stock options are void. Holden looked like he'd been physically struck. "No! No!" "Mr. Calloway," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through Holden's denial. "His badges." First Officer Tom Calloway looked at Holden, his mentor, the man who had signed off on his training. He saw the pleading in Holden's eyes, but then he looked at Dr. Reed, a woman who had just bought a $300 million aviation company and was now standing in the rain like it was a board meeting. There was no choice to be made. There was only the future and the past. Tom held out a trembling hand. "Mark, please, don't make this worse." The use of his first name broke Holden. The last shred of his authority evaporated. He was no longer Captain. He was just Mark. With fumbling, palsied hands, he unclipped the ID badge from his breast pocket. He pulled the leather lanyard from around his neck, the one that held his FBO access key and his aircraft-certified credentials. He dropped them into Tom's hand as if they were burning hot. "Security is on its way, Mark," David Allen said over the phone. "They will escort you to your vehicle. You are not to enter the FBO. You are not to speak to any other crew. Your access is revoked." You're doing this!" Holden spat, his terror turning to a predictable, impotent rage. He glared at Evelyn. You people, you come in, you buy things you don't understand. I understand algorithms, Mr. Holden," Evelyn said, her voice sharp. "I understand data, I understand efficiency, and you are a bug in the system, a critical error, and I'm debugging." 2 signature FBO security guards in black uniforms were now walking briskly across the tarmac. They didn't look angry, they looked bored. They dealt with high-profile drama all the time. "Mr. Holden, we need you to come with us, sir," one of them said. Holden gave one last, desperate look at the G700, his jet. He looked at Evelyn. He said nothing, but his eyes promised a war. Then, flanked by the guards, he began the long, humiliating walk back to the terminal, a man with no title and no job, disappearing into the rain. Evelyn watched him go, her face a mask of cold efficiency. Then she turned to Tom Calloway, who was still holding Holden's badges like a dead bird. "Thank you, Mr. Calloway," she said, all business. "Now I have a problem. I'm late for a meeting in Singapore, and I am a pilot short. Are you rated to fly this aircraft as pilot in command?" Tom paled. "No, ma'am, I'm first officer. I don't have the hours for the left seat. We can't legally fly." "Damn it," Evelyn said under her breath. It was the first sign of genuine frustration she'd shown. The problem wasn't the prejudice anymore. That was handled. The problem was logistics. She put the phone back to her ear. "David, I need a new crew. I need a captain and a first officer. I need them at Teterboro in the next 90 minutes. I don't care where you get them from. Pull them off a flight in Boston. Call them in from home. I want the best. I want your most professional, most by-the-book team. Am I clear? Yes, Dr. Reed. 90 minutes. I'll get Captain Hayes, Amelia Hayes. She's our best. She's based out of Westchester. I'll have a car get her. Good. Handle it. Evelyn clicked off the phone without saying goodbye. She looked at Tom Calloway, who was still standing by the stairs. Mr. Calloway, she said. Yes, ma'am? You've had a difficult day. You are dismissed. Go home. We will be in touch about your future with the company. Tom Calloway nodded, his face a mixture of relief and terror. He didn't know if he'd just been saved or fired. He just knew he was off the tarmac. He turned and walked away, leaving Evelyn Reed alone in front of her jet. She sighed, the cold rain seeping into her hoodie. She looked at the $70 million aircraft and then back at the terminal. She pulled her hood up, grabbed her rollerboard, and walked back inside to wait. The battle was over. The war was just beginning. When Evelyn Reed walked back through the heavy glass doors of the signature Teterboro FBO, the atmosphere was no longer just hushed. It was tomb silent. Karen, the receptionist, was standing at her polished desk, her face the color of skim milk. She had clearly been watching the entire drama unfold on the tarmac. The moment Evelyn entered, Karen looked like she was about to either burst into tears or be sick. Dr. Reed, Karen stammered, jumping to her feet. Can I get you anything? A private suite? Coffee? Water? We have pastries from Balthazar. Evelyn walked straight to the desk and put her hands on it, leaning in slightly. She wasn't angry. She was analytical. Tell me, Karen, Evelyn said, her voice quiet. When I walked in, what did you think? What did I thought, be honest, it's important. My company just paid you, signature, a $5,000 handling fee. I want to know what I paid for. Karen's composure cracked. I thought you were with the flight crew, or maybe, an assistant for the real Dr. Reed. The real Dr. Reed, Evelyn repeated, nodding slowly. The one who fits the profile. And when Captain Holden came in earlier, what did he say? He was just... He's always grumpy, Karen whispered. He said he was sick of these new money types and hoped this one wasn't a hassle. And you agreed with him, Evelyn stated. It wasn't a question. Karen's silence was her answer. I'll be in touch with your manager, Mr. Davies, Evelyn said, turning away. You might want to update your resume, Karen. Evelyn didn't take the private suite. That would be hiding. Instead, she sat in one of the main lounge chairs in the center of the room, facing the door. She opened her laptop, connected to the FBO's Wi-Fi, and got to work. But she wasn't working on her Singapore project. She VPN'd into her new company's server. She was done with the appetizer. Now it was time for the main course. She opened a new file. Audit, Executive Sky, Personnel. She started with Holden, Mark. She wasn't just firing him. She was building the case to make sure he never flew for anyone again. She pulled his file and froze. It was thin, too thin. For a 12-year employee, it was pristine. A few commendations, the required FAA certifications, but nothing else. No complaints, no write-ups, no passenger altercations. This was wrong. A man with that much arrogance, that much open prejudice, doesn't just display it for the first time on his last day. She opened a different file. Alan, David, Director of Flight Operations. She pulled his internal communications. She searched for Holden, Her blood ran cold. Dozens of emails. Hundreds. Not in the official personnel file, but in a private folder in David's Outlook. 2019. David, this client on the Palm Beach leg. Not our usual. You need to tell them their guests have to use the FBO, not the tarmac. I don't care what they look like. 2020. David, the new flight attendant. The ethnic one. She's not working out. Her service is fine, but she doesn't match the brand. Move her to the European leg. 2021. David, got another complaint from Mark about a noisy client. I smoothed it over, bought the guy dinner. Mark's a pain, but he's our best pilot. I'll bury the complaint. It wasn't just Holden. It was David. David Allen, the man who had sounded so righteously furious on the phone, wasn't protecting his new boss. He was protecting himself. He hadn't fired Holden for being a racist. He had fired Holden because Holden had finally aimed his prejudice at the wrong person and threatened to expose the entire rotten system. Evelyn's jaw was a single, tight line of muscle. This wasn't a bug. This was a corrupt operating system. Meanwhile, 15 miles away, in a rental car in the rain-soaked Teterboro employee parking lot, Mark Holden was making a call. He wasn't calling his wife. He wasn't calling a lawyer. "Yeah, this is Mark Holden," he growled into his phone. "Is this Aero Truths?" "Good. I've been a loyal reader for years. You're the one who hates these woke airlines, right? Well, have I got a story for you? Yeah, a real one. About a tech billionaire, some affirmative action hire, who just bought Executive Sky, and what she did to me, a 30-year veteran, just for doing my job." He was furious. He was humiliated, and he was going to burn the whole company to the ground. An hour and 40 minutes later, a new crew walked into the FBO. They were the physical opposite of Holden. The captain, Amelia Hayes, was a tall, sharp woman in her 40s, with an air of absolute, no-nonsense competence. Her first officer, Ben Cohen, was young, eager, and carried a tablet with their pre-flight data already loaded. "Dr. Reed," Captain Hayes said, not offering a hand but giving a crisp nod. "I'm Captain Hayes. This is First Officer Cohen. We've filed our flight plan. Weather to Singapore is, well, it's a long flight, but the route is clear. We're wheels up in 30 minutes, if that's acceptable to you." "That is more than acceptable, Captain," Evelyn said, closing her laptop. For the first time that day, she felt a sliver of relief. This was the standard. "We'll be on board conducting our checks," Hayes said. She and Cohen turned and walked out to the tarmac, a single professional unit. Evelyn gathered her things. She was about to follow them, to finally leave this miserable airport behind, when her phone rang. The screen read, "David Allen." She sighed and answered it. "This had better be good news, David." "Dr. Reed." "Ma'am." David Allen sounded even worse than before. He was no longer panicked. He was terrified. "We have a secondary problem." "What is it, David? Hasn't Mark Holden been removed?" "He's been removed, ma'am. But he's talking. He's called Aero Truths. It's a trashy right-wing aviation blog, but it gets read by a lot of pilots. He's spinning a story. He's saying you're a social justice warrior on a power trip, that you fired him because he raised legitimate safety concerns about you, and that it was racism in reverse." Evelyn stopped, her hand on the glass door to the tarmac. "That's a public relations problem, David. We have a PR team. Handle it." That's not the whole problem," David choked out. He's threatening. He says if I don't back his story and confirm that he was unjustly fired, he's going to..." to release things about me. Evelyn went perfectly still. The pieces clicked into place. The clean personnel file, the private email folder she'd just found, the Aerotruths blog. This was the real twist. "What things, David?" she asked, her voice pure ice. David Allen cracked. The dam of his pathetic self-preservation broke, and it all came pouring out in a torrent of wheezing confessions. Holden's had complaints before, Dr. Reed. Dozens, over years. I handled them. I kept them out of his official file. I moved flight attendants. I comped clients. He was one of our senior-most pilots, a 30-year man. I protected him. I thought it was just Mark being Mark. It's an old-school culture. He's threatening to say I covered it all up unless I support him. David, Evelyn said, her voice dangerously calm. Are you telling me you enabled a known liability for years, exposing this company to millions in potential damages, all to avoid paperwork? Dr. Reed, please, I can fix this, David pleaded. I'll call the blogger. I'll pay him off. I'll do anything. Yes, you will, Evelyn said. First, you will do nothing. You will not call Mark. You will not call the blogger. You will not delete a single file. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, but... Second, Evelyn interrupted. I'm changing my flight plan. She pushed open the door. The rain had stopped. Captain Hayes was at the top of the air stairs, doing a visual check. Captain Hayes, Evelyn called out. The pilot turned, surprised. Yes, ma'am? File a new plan. Change of destination. We're not going to Singapore. We're going to Atlanta. Hartsfield-Jackson. Executive Sky's corporate headquarters. Captain Hayes didn't blink. She didn't ask why. She didn't complain about the paperwork. She just nodded. Yes, ma'am. New plan to KATL. Give me 10 minutes. Evelyn got back on the phone with the whimpering director. David. Yes, Dr. Reed. I will be in your office in 3 hours. I want the complete, unsanitized personnel files for every pilot, every flight attendant, and every scheduler in this company. I want them on the main conference room table. And David? Yes, ma'am. Call your lawyer. Tell him to meet you there. Evelyn hung up. She looked at the G700, her jet, her company, her problem. She walked up the stairs, her sneakers silent on the metal. As she passed Captain Hayes, she nodded. Let's go to work. The Gulfstream G700 was fast. In just under 3 hours, it descended from the dark clouds into the bright, humid airspace of Atlanta, Georgia. The corporate headquarters of Executive Sky, a sterile glass and steel building on the north side of Hartsfield-Jackson, was an island of quiet anxiety. David Allen was there, as instructed. He looked like he had aged 10 years since the Teterboro call. His suit was rumpled, and his skin was a pasty grey. Beside him sat a sharp-suited lawyer from a high-priced Atlanta firm, who looked annoyed at the weekend intrusion. Evelyn walked into the conference room, not with a lawyer, but with her own team, who she'd had flown in from New York and D.C. on a separate charter. They weren't lawyers. They were, as she called them, fixers, a forensic accountant, a labor and ethics specialist, and a data systems analyst. David, Evelyn said, taking the chair at the head of the table. Mr. Croft, she nodded at the lawyer. Thank you for waiting. Let's begin the audit. Dr. Reed, the lawyer, Croft, began. My client, Mr. Allen, has served this company faithfully for 20 years. This audit, on a Saturday, seems like a punitive reaction to a single, unfortunate incident with a disgruntled employee. Evelyn didn't even look at him. She looked at David. David, did you bring the files? David nodded mutely, gesturing to 3 large rolling file bins. Good, Evelyn said. My team will handle those. What I want is your digital footprint. She turned to her data systems analyst. Mike, I want you to image David's hard drive, his server access, and his phone. We're looking for handled complaints. This is an outrage, Croft blustered. A violation of privacy. You will sit there, Mr. Croft, Evelyn said, her voice dropping. Or your client can tender his resignation right now for gross negligence and walk out of here with nothing. But if he wants even the possibility of a negotiated separation, he will cooperate. Fully. Croft looked at David. David just sagged. Do it, he mumbled. For the next 4 hours, the room was a hive of quiet, brutal efficiency. Evelyn's team tore through the company's digital life, and it was worse than she'd imagined. It wasn't just Holden. It was a culture, a good old boys network that David Allen hadn't just enabled. He had curated. Pilots were promoted based on friendships. Flights were assigned based on who David liked. Female and minority pilots were consistently given the worst-paying, least desirable routes. Complaints were buried, sorted into official and unofficial folders. Just then, Evelyn's new assistant, who had been monitoring the web, brought a tablet into the room. Dr. Reed, it's live. On the screen, the AeroTruth's blog post had dropped. The headline was even worse than she'd thought. Woke billionaire fires veteran pilot for not fitting the profile of her ego. Exclusive interview with Captain Mark Holden. The article was a masterpiece of self-serving lies. It painted Holden as a hero, a pilot who had bravely questioned a suspicious individual near his aircraft. It called Evelyn incompetent, dangerous, and an affirmative action diversity hire who had bought a company she knew nothing about. But then Holden made his fatal mistake. He got specific. This is what they do, Holden was quoted as saying. I've seen it before. Back in 2019, I had a client, a rapper, who tried to bring his whole posse onto the jet. I stopped it. I told them no. I didn't like their look. It was a safety issue. David Allen backed me 100%. That's what a good ops director does. He backs his pilots. David Allen made a small, strangled noise. The lawyer, Croft, actually smiled. See, Dr. Reed, this is a PR nightmare. Holden is attacking you. You need David. He can make a statement, support you, refute Holden's claims about the 2019 incident. Evelyn Reed smiled back. It was a thin, cold, terrifying smile. No, Mr. Croft, we're not going to refute it. We're going to confirm it. Everyone stared at her. My PR team, Evelyn said, is about to release a statement. It will say, Executive Sky is fully cooperating with an internal audit regarding the actions of Mr. Holden and his supervisor, Mr. Allen. We are horrified by the conduct Mr. Holden bragged about in the AeroTruth's blog, which confirms a pattern of racial and professional bias. We thank the AeroTruth's blog for bringing Mr. Holden's public confession to light. Our audit will now expand to include the 2019 incident he was so proud of. David Allen's face went from grey to white. Holden hadn't just thrown himself on his sword, he had thrown David with him. Evelyn stood up. David, you're fired. For cause. Mr. Croft, your client can see himself out. My team is staying. We're seizing all company property. We're debugging. The fallout was not just a ripple. It was a tsunami. And it began not with a bang, but with a click. The AeroTruth's blog post, which was meant to be Mark Holden's glorious revenge, dropped at 8 a.m. on Sunday. For the first 2 hours, it was everything he'd dreamed of. The article, written by the blog's rabidly anti-establishment owner, Terry Vance, was a masterpiece of self-serving lies. It painted Holden as a salt-of-the-earth hero, a 30-year veteran who had bravely questioned a suspicious individual and was crucified by the new woke mob. The comment section was a cesspool of agreement. This is what happens when they take over. Affirmative action in the cockpit. We're all gonna die. That pilot deserves a medal. I'd never let a hoodie on my plane. Mark Holden sat at a sports bar in a New Jersey strip mall, a beer in hand at 10 a.m., watching his phone blow up with messages of support from his old guard buddies. He was a martyr. He was a hero. He was, in his own mind, invincible. At 10:30 a.m., Evelyn's PR team, a high-powered DC firm she kept on retainer, released her official statement. It wasn't sent to the major news outlets. It was sent directly to Terry Vance and posted as a comment on his own blog. Meridian Air, formerly Executive Sky, would like to formally thank AeroTruths for its invaluable investigative journalism. We have been conducting an internal audit of former employee Mark Holden. We were, however, unaware of the full scope of his misconduct until he publicly confessed to it in this very article. Mr. Holden's admission of a 2019 incident where he grounded a flight based on not liking the look of a client confirms a pattern of racial and professional bias. This confession, combined with his termination for cause at Teterboro, has been forwarded to the FAA. We are also grateful that Mr. Holden implicated his supervisor, Mr. David Allen, which has greatly assisted our ongoing legal case against Mr. Allen for gross negligence. We will be using this article and Mr. Holden's quotes as Exhibit A. Thank you for your service. The comment section went silent. Terry Vance, the blogger, stared at his screen, his face turning a deep, blotchy red. He had been played. He wasn't a journalist. He was a pawn. This woke billionaire hadn't fought him. She had used him. She had thanked him. He, a self-proclaimed lion, had been turned into a lapdog. His reputation with his own readers was on the line. He'd been made to look like a fool. His rage now was not at Evelyn. It was at Holden. Holden had lied to him, had omitted the real story, and had used him to get his little revenge, which had now blown back on the blog. Vance needed to control the narrative. He needed to be the one who exposed the truth. At 11 a.m., a new post went up on AeroTruths. Update the raw audio. Mark Holden lied to me. Hear the truth for yourself. Terry Vance uploaded the entire, unedited, 40-minute phone call, and it was a catastrophe. The audio was a career-ending, life-ending immolation. It wasn't just a man telling his side of the story. It was a drunken, unhinged tirade. The listeners heard Mark Holden, his voice slurring slightly, unleash a torrent of racist, sexist, and profoundly arrogant bile. I'm telling you, Terry, she's one of those. Comes in like she owns the place. Little racial slur in a hoodie. I told her. I said, you don't fit the profile. And I was right. She's just some affirmative action tech nerd. It's just like that rapper back in 19, comes on with his whole posse, gold chains and, just loud. I told David, I'm not flying these animals. He said, don't worry, Mark, I got you. I wrote up he laughs. I wrote up a flight management system glitch. Falsified the log. Grounded the whole damn plane. David comped him a hotel and... He breaks down laughing. And he buried the complaint in the catering overage budget. A genius. We've done it 12 times. This new flight attendant. The ethnic one. I told David, her hair, it's not professional. She was on my G700, my jet. Next day, she's flying a charter to Buffalo on a King Air. Snorts. He knows how to handle things. He's old school. The audio was a digital grenade, and it blew up everyone it touched. The fate of Captain Mark Holden. This was the masterpiece of karma. The Federal Aviation Administration, already alerted by Evelyn's initial complaint, now had an unimpeachable public confession. They didn't just investigate. They convened a formal hearing for the revocation of his airline transport pilot, ATP license. The hearing was not a trial. It was an execution. Mark Holden sat in a sterile conference room in the FAA's Washington, D.C. field office. He was wearing an ill-fitting suit, his hands visibly shaking. Across from him sat 3 stone-faced administrators. Evelyn's team was there. Not her, but her fixers. Her forensic accountant, Sarah, presented the catering overage budget, showing a direct correlation between complaint burying and $4.2 million in goodwill gestures under David Allen's code. Her data systems analyst, Mike, presented the unsanitized server files. He brought up the original 2019 passenger complaint from the Rapper's management team, detailing the sudden and unexplained mechanical issue and Captain Holden's unprofessional and hostile attitude. Then he brought up the falsified maintenance log for that flight, signed by Holden, beside the actual aircraft log, which showed no FMS glitch whatsoever. "Mr. Holden," the lead administrator said, her voice devoid of emotion, "you are on audio record, in a public forum, admitting to the willful falsification of federal documents, specifically an aircraft maintenance log. You admitted this was done not for safety, but for personal prejudice. You admitted to a pattern of this behavior, enabled by your supervisor." It was bar talk," Holden sputtered. "I was drunk. I was puffing myself up. Are you under oath, denying that you falsified the 2019 log?" Holden looked at the log. He looked at the administrator. He was trapped. I don't recall." "Then we will recall it for you," the administrator said. "The FAA finds that you, Mark Holden, have demonstrated a pattern of conduct that is in direct violation of Title 14, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 61.1Y53. You have displayed a character that is antithetical to the judgment, responsibility, and trust required of an airline transport pilot. You have willfully falsified records. You are, in our estimation, a direct threat to the safety and integrity of the national airspace system." The verdict was read. "Effective immediately, your airline transport pilot license is permanently revoked. All flying privileges are rescinded." It wasn't just a firing. It was the end of his identity. He couldn't fly a G700. He couldn't fly a regional jet. He couldn't legally fly a Cessna 172 to give weekend lessons. He was grounded. Forever. His old guard friends vanished. The audio had implicated them, and they were all running for cover. He tried to get a job as a simulator instructor. The school's insurance company saw his name and refused to cover him. The last anyone heard, Mark Holden was working as an inventory clerk for a crop dusting company in rural Pennsylvania, counting pesticides in a dusty hangar. He was a man who had commanded $70 million jets, now grounded for life, a joke in the industry he once ruled. The fate of David Allen, David's fate, was not in the hands of the FAA, but in the hands of the lawyers. Evelyn's team, armed with the audit and the audio, didn't just fire him. They filed a civil clawback suit against him for gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. In a sterile deposition room, Evelyn's lawyer laid out the case. "Mr. Allen, your contract stipulated that your primary duty was to protect the company's assets and mitigate risk. Is that correct?" "Yes, but..." "And our forensic audit, led by Ms. Sarah here, the lawyer motioned to the accountant, has determined that over a 10-year period you actively subverted this duty. You cost this company an estimated $4.2 million in comped flights, hotel stays, and other gestures, all to bury official complaints against a preferred group of pilots. Can you explain why? David, under oath, crumbled. He tried to lie. He tried to blame corporate culture. He tried to say he was protecting his team. The lawyer just played a new clip from the Holden audio. David's a genius. He knows how to handle things. He buries it. David Allen lost everything. The court found him grossly negligent. His termination for cause was upheld, voiding his golden parachute, his stock options, and his entire severance package. The company placed a lien on his assets to reclaim a portion of the $4.2 million he had squandered. He lost his McMansion in Alpharetta. He lost his boat. His wife left him. He was a pariah in the aviation world, known as the man who let his buddy system sink the ship. He eventually found work, the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. graveyard shift, as a logistics dispatcher for a long-haul trucking company, a windowless room, a glowing green screen, and a lifetime of what-ifs. The fate of Karen Jensen. Evelyn didn't just fire Karen. That would have been too easy. Instead, Evelyn made a phone call, not to Karen's manager, but to the global CEO of Signature Aviation. "Mr. Davies," Evelyn said, her voice calm, "I am the new owner of Meridian Air. We are currently reviewing all our vendor contracts. Our Teterboro experience was informative. My flight ops team is projecting 1,000 flight hours this quarter. That's a lot of fuel, a lot of handling fees. We are, of course, taking bids. I hear NetJets has a wonderful FBO in Bedford." The CEO, Mr. Davies, nearly choked. Meridian Air was poised to be one of the largest new accounts in the private sector. Losing them over a rude receptionist was not an option. "Dr. Reed," he sputtered, whatever the issue is, it will be rectified. I will handle this personally. You have my word." Karen Jensen was not fired. She arrived at work the next Monday to find her security badge didn't work. She was called into an emergency HR meeting with a vice president who had flown in from Orlando. She was put on indefinite administrative review. She was in corporate limbo. She was ordered to attend a new, company-wide, unconscious bias and customer-first mandatory training seminar. And when she walked into the ballroom at the airport Marriott, her blood ran cold. The training was being led by a corporate VP, and the primary case study, the central what not to do example, was her. Her name was redacted, but everyone in the room, every pilot, every receptionist, every line worker, knew exactly who Employee K at Teterboro was. She had to sit there for 8 hours and listen to her own failure being dissected as the new gold standard for how to lose a $10 million account. She was a ghost, still on the payroll but with no job, a living warning to everyone else. The resolution, Meridian Air, 6 months later. The Teterboro tarmac was bright and sunny. A sleek Gulfstream G700 sat waiting. The old gaudy Executive Sky logo was gone. The tail was now painted with a simple, elegant silver M. The company had been reborn, Meridian Air. Dr. Evelyn Reed walked through the Signature FBO. The new receptionist, a sharp man named Carlos, greeted her by name, instantly. "Good morning, Dr. Reed. Captain Hayes is on board. The flight plan to Singapore is filed, and your preferred catering is already loaded. We've pre-cleared your departure." Evelyn smiled. "Thank you, Carlos." She walked onto the tarmac. At the base of the air stairs stood Captain Amelia Hayes. She wasn't just a pilot. Evelyn had promoted her to Director of Flight Operations, replacing the ghost of David Allen. Morning, Doctor, Amelia smiled. We're wheels up in 15, all green. Thank you, Amelia, Evelyn said. How's the new system? The new ops manual is perfect, Amelia said. The merit-based flight assignments are working. The crews love the transparent complaint system. And the new no profiling clause in the training, it's a new company, Evelyn. It's the company it was always supposed to be, Evelyn replied. She walked up the stairs, her sneakers silent on the metal. The jet was the same, but the culture was entirely new. The flight attendant was professional, efficient, and respectful. Evelyn sat in her usual seat. As the G700, tail number N700 MAR for Meridian, rocketed into the sky, she didn't look back at the ground. She opened her laptop. The company was debugged. The old corrupt files had been permanently deleted. She opened a new file, a blank page. Project, Meridian, Phase 2, Global Expansion. She was done debugging. It was time to build, and that's what hard karma looks like. It isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet audit that uncovers the truth. Mark Holden and David Allen didn't just lose their jobs, they lost their careers, all because they judged a person by their appearance, not their credentials. Evelyn Reed proved that true power isn't about being loud, it's about the change you make. She didn't just buy a jet, she bought the whole company and changed its culture from the inside out. What do you think? Was this karma served hot enough? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you loved this story of justice, make sure to hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to see it. And please, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story of karma hitting back. We'll see you in the next one.